I'm Chris Miglino with Sequire, and we are here at the world-famous Roth Conference in beautiful Southern California. And I am here with Frantz Saintellemy with LeddarTech. And welcome, Frantz. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. You guys are trading under the symbol LDTC.
That's correct.
Okay, fantastic. Now, you guys...
NASDAQ for what it's worth.
Well, NASDAQ is the place to do it.
Yeah.
I have a Tesla. I love my Tesla. It's the best piece of technology I've ever owned in my entire life, right? And before I owned a Tesla, I saw all these cars around and I thought, why are all these people buying these cars, you know? And now I know it's not just a car. It's a computer.
Right.
I mean, it's a massive computer. And not driving anymore. Like when I drive home tonight, it's going to be a 3-hour drive and I won't drive.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm turning that on. I'm touching the wheel every once in a while. I kind of got it figured out where I could just touch my legs against the wheel every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I trust the car to drive me home. You know, some people say, do you really trust the car to drive? But you guys are working on tech to make this possible, I would imagine, for all types of cars.
Right, exactly. And the Tesla is a great example of how a pioneer really pushes the boundaries of technology to a point where it becomes quite normal for people. And like you just said, you trust the technology to get you from point A to point B. Is it entirely safe? Absolutely not. But does it work? You bet it does. It doesn't work in every condition or in any condition on any roads, but it definitely works. What we're building, LeddarTech, is we're actually taking it one step further. So your Tesla relies predominantly on its cameras. Mm-hmm. And although cameras are very good technologies, they're the closest to the human eye, but they're imperfect. They're susceptible to weather conditions, adverse conditions.
Yeah, every time I get rain, heavy rain,
right.
You know, I can't do it anymore.
Exactly. It's an optics, right? And with optics, elements have impacts. So what we are doing is we're building software that actually can take inputs, not just from the camera, but also from radars, from ultrasonic sensors, from LiDARs, or even from the overall vehicle dynamics. So even though you may not see it, but your vehicle is telling me, am I on a smooth road or not? Am I on gravel or am I on rocks or am I on dirt? And so that actually impacts the driving decision. So we take all these inputs from the different types of sensors. We fuse all of that and we apply what we call our unique artificial intelligence engine to really derive a much better understanding of the scene. So we recreate the environment of the vehicle in a very highly rich, dense 3D model, and then we apply intelligence to basically make safe driving decisions. So in your scenario, Tesla, you add radars onto it. Actually, it makes the vehicle much safer, and actually have as a mean to completely validate what's happening in the scene. If the camera doesn't see it, the radar sees it, then it can compare. If the radar sees it, the camera doesn't see it, they can compare. If both see it, then it's an easy decision.
Right.
But by fusing these together, you create a much safer system. Just like your human brain. Your brain takes inputs from its eyes, your eyes, from your ears, from your sensory network, and it fuses all of that together to make a good understanding of the environment.
So you're training all of this. Like, how do you do this? You have cars out on the road that are training all the time?
So what's great about our software model is you don't need a lot of data to train it. Again, just like your human brain, a little bit of information allows to derive much information out of it. So we have cars all over the world that are basically taking data from real world. But we also have simulation environment where we take synthetic data. So difficult to replicate scenarios, like you're driving down the road and then there's a bunch of roosters all of a sudden that show up. Well, hard to find those scenarios on a regular basis.
Right.
So you have to add those roosters digitally.
Right.
But we do that also to be able to train the model to understand those extreme scenarios where you're having hail, for example.
Right.
Or you're driving, all of a sudden there's a thunderstorm. The model has to be able to react and respond accurately, even though in most cases humans would not be able to react, but the car has to be able to react to make it safe. We make that software.
And how does the software adapt to different models of cars? Does it have to be trained on every single model of car?
So the way it works, it's one software stack that can adapt to different types of sensors.
So the basics underlying are the same, but then it's adjusting to each car.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And that makes it easier for car manufacturers who have many brands, many tiers within the brands. And so therefore they need to have one software. Today, it's actually multiple software for every car model, every trim. If they have an advanced version for Germany, and then they have a version for the US, they keep two software. If they have a car, for example, that has a much higher end trim, so more cameras, more radars, it's a different software. What LeddarTech is enabling is that one software stack, any car model, any brand, you can just retrain it for the different types of configurations.
So your customers are car manufacturers then?
Correct.
Right? And how many car manufacturers are there in the world?
Oh, if you count the new EV companies, there's a couple of hundreds of them now.
Okay, so a couple hundred car manufacturers in the world. How hard is it to sell through your product to these car manufacturers, or are they just clamoring to get it because they need it?
Well, that's a great question. If you had asked me that question 3-4 years ago, I would have said super hard because everybody wants to do it themselves.
Right.
Because they all think that, this is so important that we need to own it. Well, and they all have tried, spent billions of dollars. Famously, Argo AI, for example. More recently, Cruise from General Motors, or a company like Volkswagen, Cariad. Billions of dollars that they've invested in trying to build software teams to build this type of architecture, realizing that you can't throw money at it. Technology doesn't work that way. And so it's a difficult problem to solve. And so today, they realize they're better off partnering with companies like LeddarTech. We just made a major announcement together with ARM, for example. ARM is one of the leaders in these SoC system on a chip. So think about it. Your Tesla, it has supercomputers in there. And the core of these computers is probably ARM or someone like that. But it's definitely ARM is the leader in terms of these brains for these processors. And so ARM is basically using our software to be able to sell their core to the next generation car manufacturers out there. So we're getting more traction than we can support today. And we think that the next coming years will be an amazing place to be because it's a market that's growing from just below $7 billion to over $40 billion within the next 10 years.
Wow.
And guess what? It's all software. And guess what? There's not that many companies that do what we do.
What about the stuff that you see on the news that, doesn't Google have a self-driving car, or do they gave that up?
No, they do. Self-driving car is a very different problem than making your cars every day safe.
Okay.
So I can get a self-driving car in a particular area, and I train it for that particular area, just like California, for example, and say San Francisco. So I map San Francisco, and then I'll train with enough money, enough time, I get a good car out. That's what Waymo has done, Google. But any roads, any scenario, in any condition, in any language, in different geographies, it's extremely difficult to do. So that doesn't scale. Making your car safe so that you can read a road sign, that you can detect the lane, it doesn't matter where it is, that we can do. And then bridge from there, create autonomous functions, autonomous features. So parking assist, traffic jam assist, highway assist, and then eventually pilot, parking pilot, traffic jam pilot, highway pilot. So these functionalities become functions in a particular domain. So highway pilot, complete pilot for highway. And that we can build from that, but you need to go gradual and test and not test open air because that's quite dangerous. But regulation is now forcing the car manufacturers all over the world to have cars that meet safety men.
Yeah, I think it's safer to drive the Tesla on self-driving mode, autopilot, than me driving it.
Oh yeah,
it pays attention all the time, never gets distracted. In fact, if I pick up my phone when I'm in auto driving mode, the thing starts beeping all over the place and says, "Hey, no go."
Right,
and it's trained me that I can't look at my phone.
But it's not a full self-driving mode.
Right.
It's a driving mode in a specific scenario that makes it safe. But if you start now doing it in any condition that it hasn't been trained on a road that it doesn't know, it can get really dangerous.
Right.
And that's what's happening. But the technology itself is super, super good.
So how big is your team of developers that are doing this?
So we have probably one of the largest concentration of perception software people in the industry.
Perception software, that's how they're classified.
That's how they're classified.
Okay.
And so this is very specialty AI, and we've got 150 of them between Montreal, Quebec City, Toronto, and Tel Aviv, 4 major centers where it's got great concentration of AI scientists in the world. So Montreal is known as the largest cluster of AI scientists in the world, not Silicon Valley, in the world. Toronto's not too far behind. And then Tel Aviv is not too far behind either. So we've got great talent, and we're in a good position to really deploy the technology to its next phase.
I think, just to have a little tangent on the Silicon Valley thing, it doesn't matter anymore.
No.
It used to matter. It was a heavy concentration right there near San Francisco. It really mattered to be there. I think now it doesn't matter. You could be anywhere in the world. You could be an amazing programmer in India.
You're right.
And I think that the world has gotten a lot smaller for that. But to have so many of them in Canada is a unique situation.
Great situation. But I'll tell you why it does matter for financing. If you're starting a new company, the Valley definitely has higher concentration of people who understand the value of technology and who are willing to take intelligent risks. Versus if you're, where we are in Canada, we're the best kept secret. People are, if we're natural resources, it would be normal. People understand. But, deep tech, auto tech, we're not known for that. So we've got to work harder to get our story on the road. But we're quite delighted to do so because we know we've got amazing technology.
Now, what are the KPIs that are important for you? Like, what are the things that you measure to determine success?
Right. So there are 4 things that matters. The first thing is, we are engaging with the key OEMs and the tier ones who are making the decision. So the customer traction, we've got, 30 or plus customers that we're engaged with that really are evaluating and also making decisions to integrate our solutions into the next generation vehicles. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the number of partnerships. And partnerships are key, particularly for the processor makers. That's the hardest part, is to make the software. The second part that's hard is to integrate that software into a very low-cost chip. So, people are talking about ChatGPT, right? Generative AI. That's great if you're in a data center because you've got no limitation for power, nor for energy, nor for, price.
Right.
But a vehicle that's costing $30,000, price matters. So the art is to be able to take that supreme intelligence, data center-like, integrate into an application, and then make it fit into a low-cost chip. That's like $30 to $50, not $500 or $5,000. And so that makes a big difference. And we're supremely good at that. We have partners such as Texas Instruments. We have partners in China like Black Sesame. But we also just made an announcement last week with ARM. ARM, as I mentioned, is one of the leaders in they're the market leader in processor cores. And for their next generation, they've selected LeddarTech to be the software partner for that technology for automotive. And so partnerships are important, but there are also other types of partners. For example, to build a vehicle, you need sensors. camera manufacturers, radar manufacturers. So we have partnerships with a number of these guys as well. And then the third thing is, obviously, as we become as we're now a publicly listed company, we are we're positioned to really for the next wave of growth. And are there new platforms that are integrating multiple sensor types? So not just the cameras. So at CES earlier this year, even the market leader, Mobileye, made the announcement that our technology is the technology of the future. It's a much better way, more efficient way. So more companies like that announcing multimodal fusion, multi-sensor fusion, that's an incredible milestone, because right now we're pioneering it. We think we're 3 to 4 years ahead of the competition. And the more companies make that decision that this is the direction they need to go, great position for us to be in. And then the final thing is, of course, our growth. So how are we growing in terms of resources? So we're going to continue to invest in the areas. And as we get more traction with our customers, we're going to continue to build the team and to add these scientists to our core team.
Do the car companies pay you for the research and development side of the business? Like, your revenues that you generate in the company, is it coming pre-deployment of this, or do you have to develop the product and then sell it to the car manufacturers?
So the product is largely developed. We wouldn't be able to engage with an OEM or a tier one if we didn't have technology available. So we've got, $200-300 million already invested in the technology. And this is what I meant by this is a great position to be in, because we don't have to invest in R&D. Mm-hmm. Now we're investing in commercial deployments, engaging with these OEMs to deploy our technology. And that, to adapt for their needs, they pay us for that.
Okay.
ARM, I just mentioned, they paid us to basically evaluate if our software would work with their core. That's how important it is to them. So yes, they pay us what we call non-recurring engineering fees to do these analysis and to also evaluate our technologies. And when they make a decision, then they'll buy a development license. So the development license will allow them to develop the application on top of our IP. And then when they are in production, they'll pay us a royalty per vehicle.
And how long do you think it is before that kind of flywheel starts going? Because that's where the money's going to be, right? The second it's deployed into X amount of vehicles and you're collecting those licensing
That's
fees.
Right. So that would be, in our case, we think over the next 3 years, we should see the first major deployments. Mm-hmm. And so that puts us into 27, 28. Those are the next car manufacturing, the next car platforms that will be launched by the car manufacturers. And that's massive, because one win OEM deployment generates a ton of cash for LeddarTech.
Well, I wish you guys the best of luck on this. I find it amazing that cars will be driving themselves. I think they all should be. Now, I understand that people are a little bit sketchy about it sometimes. For me, it doesn't even faze me at all. I've become accustomed to it, and I think it's I think that it's safer than me driving. It's certainly safer than my wife driving, but it's safer than me driving. And when people get in the car for the first time and sit with the car driving by itself, they you can see them sit back and go, "Whoa, right. This thing is turning all by itself and going." And I just think it's the future. So I think you're very well positioned for this. It's one of those things that is. You got to catch it at you have caught it at the perfect time. It is inevitable.
It's no question. It's a perfect time. We have, tailwind. Regulators are making safety mandatory for all car budgets across the world. At the same time, we are bridging between driver safety and autonomous driving. So we're sort of like the bridge between the two. And the third thing is there's a lot of these car manufacturers have gone through the trial and errors. They know now what they need. 4 or 5 years ago, everybody was sort of running after autonomous driving and to realize that this is not the way to do it. The way to do it is to actually do it gradually, phase by phase, and to have software that can adapt to any environment. And this is what we have built.
You guys saw it here. Watch out. LDTC. So Larry, David, Tom, Charles on the NASDAQ. This might be in your car soon. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Thanks for talking with us.
Thank you.